A boy haunted by a childhood dog attack saw an elderly couple in danger. When he chose to face his worst fear to save them, mysterious men in a black SUV started watching his house. Marcus's sneakers scraped against the sidewalk as he stopped dead in his tracks. 50 feet ahead, behind Mr. Thompson's chain-link fence, the Rottweiler's teeth flashed white against black gums. The dog's bark hit him like a physical force. "Easy, boy," Marcus whispered, his throat tight. His hands trembled as he gripped the straps of his backpack. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the suburban street, but the dog's eyes caught the light and glowed. The barking grew louder. Marcus's heart pounded against his ribs. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool October air. He took one step backward, then another. "Back off, Thunder!" Mr. Thompson's voice boomed from somewhere inside the house. The dog didn't listen. Marcus's legs felt like concrete. His mind flashed back 5 years, to another street, another dog. Jimmy's screams, the blood on the pavement. The helplessness. His phone buzzed in his pocket, making him jump. With shaking fingers, he pulled it out. Mom's face smiled up from the screen. "Hey, baby," she said when he answered. Hospital noise crackled in the background. "You home yet?" "Almost," Marcus managed, his voice cracking. He cleared his throat. "Just taking the long way." A pause. His mother knew about the dog. About all of it. "You could cross the street, you know." "Yeah." But crossing meant admitting his fear. Letting it win. Again. "I'm good. Just being careful." "Okay. Well, don't dawdle too long." "Got your house key?" "Yes." The weight of responsibility settled over him, pushing the fear back a little. "I'll start dinner after homework." "That's my responsible boy." Pride and something sadder mixed in her voice. "I'll try to call around 8. "Okay. Love you. Love you too, Mom." The call ended. Marcus looked up. Thunder still watched him, hackles raised, but the barking had settled to a low growl. Mr. Thompson appeared in the yard, clipboard in hand. "Sorry about that, Marcus," the older man called. "His all bark, you know." Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. His legs finally unstuck from the sidewalk. He forced himself to walk past, keeping his movements slow and steady. Thunder tracked his every step. Back home, Marcus's hands still shook as he unlocked the front door. The empty house felt too quiet after the dog's barking. He dropped his backpack by the kitchen table and checked the time. 4:15 p.m. Late again. He pulled out his math textbook and a granola bar, falling into his after-school routine. The numbers helped, giving his mind something concrete to focus on. By the time he finished the last algebra problem, his heart rate had almost returned to normal. A knock at the door made him tense again. Through the window, he saw Mrs. Chen from next door holding a covered dish. "Brought you some dumplings," she said when he opened the door. "You're such a good boy. Always studying, taking care of things while your memoir works. But you need to eat more than granola bars." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen." The warm container felt solid in his hands. "Real. Such a mature young man," she continued, patting his arm. 13 going on 30. "I tell your mother. But it's not right. A boy alone so much." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "I don't mind. Mom works hard." Of course, of course." "Well, eat while they're hot. Tell your mother hello." After she left, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with the dumplings and his history homework. The house creaked and settled around him. Outside, a dog barked in the distance. His fork scraped against the container. He got through 3 chapters of reading before starting dinner. Simple stuff, pasta with jar sauce, the way Mom showed him. The routine motions helped, filling the pot, waiting for the water to boil, stirring the noodles. Normal things. Safe things. His phone buzzed again at 8:05 p.m. "Dinner good?" Mom asked. "Yeah." Mrs. Chen brought dumplings too. "That was nice of her." "Homework done?" "Almost. Just need to finish my essay for English." "Don't stay up too late." "Okay. I know you. Trying to make it perfect." Marcus smiled despite himself. "I won't." After hanging up, he washed the dishes and packed his lunch for tomorrow. The house felt bigger at night, emptier. He double-checked the doors and windows before heading upstairs. In bed, Marcus stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles above him. The streetlight outside cast strange shadows through the blinds. His mind drifted back to that day 5 years ago, the memories sharp as ever. He'd been 8, walking home from the park with Jimmy. The pit bull came out of nowhere. No warning growl, no barking. Just sudden violence and screaming and blood on the sidewalk. Jimmy survived, but the scars on his arm never faded. Neither did Marcus's fear. Thunder's bark echoed in his head. His hands clenched in the sheets. Sleep came slowly, filled with dreams of running and teeth and helplessness. In the morning, he'd wake up tired but push through anyway. Because that's what responsible people did. That's what Mom needed him to do. But in the dark, alone, Marcus Johnson was just a scared 13-year-old boy, haunted by memories of things he couldn't control and the weight of fears he couldn't escape. A dog howled somewhere in the neighborhood. Marcus pulled the covers tighter and waited for morning. The alarm buzzed at 6:30 a.m. sharp. Marcus's hand shot out from under the covers, muscle memory guiding him to the snooze button. He lay there for exactly 2 minutes before pushing himself up. Okay, he muttered to the empty room. Time to move. The morning routine ran like clockwork. Shower, brush teeth, dress, double-check backpack. He pulled on his favorite gray hoodie, the soft one Mom got him for his birthday. The mirror showed dark circles under his eyes, but that wasn't new. Downstairs, he found Mom's note on the kitchen counter. Late surgery. Leftovers in fridge. Love you, Mom. Next to it sat a $20 bill. Marcus tucked it into his wallet, adding it to his savings. The kitchen timer ticked as he made breakfast. 2 eggs, toast, orange juice. He ate standing up, scanning through his homework one last time. The essay looked good enough, maybe not perfect, but solid. Outside, the morning air bit cold. Marcus locked up and started walking, checking his watch. 7:15 a.m. Right on schedule. Morning, Marcus. Mr. Peterson called from his driveway. Lawn needs mowing this afternoon if you're free. Yes, sir. After school? Perfect. The usual rate. Marcus nodded, already calculating. 20 from Mom, another 15 from mowing. His college fund grew slowly but steadily. The school halls buzzed with pre-class energy. Marcus weaved through the crowd to his locker, exchanging quick nods with classmates. Johnson, his history teacher, Mr. Roberts, stuck his head out of his classroom. That essay ready? Yes, sir. Marcus pulled it from his folder. 3 pages on the Civil War's economic impact. Mr. Roberts scanned the first paragraph. Good start. Keep this up. You're looking at an A for the semester. First period math went smoothly. Marcus lost himself in equations, the logical progression of numbers soothing his tired mind. Ms. Williams called him up to solve a problem on the board. He got it right first try. Show off, someone whispered, but without real malice. Marcus ignored it. Lunch meant the cafeteria's usual chaos. Marcus found a quiet corner table, unpacking his sandwich and apple. He'd just taken his first bite when Derek and Jamal dropped into the seats across from him. Yo, Marcus, Jamal said, spreading out his lunch. You hear about those dog attacks over on Maple Street? Marcus's sandwich stuck in his throat. He forced himself to swallow. What attacks? Derek pulled up his phone. 2 this week. Some big dog getting loose, going after people. Animal control's looking for it. They got pictures? Marcus asked, not sure why he was torturing himself. Nah, just reports. But my cousin lives over there, says it's huge. Like, monster huge. Marcus's appetite vanished. He wrapped up his half-eaten sandwich, trying to keep his hands steady. You okay, man? Jamal asked. You look kind of pale. Yeah, just thinking about that test next period. The afternoon dragged. Marcus kept checking the time, watching the minutes tick toward his after-school job. At least Mr. Peterson's yard was dog-free. The mower's steady rumble helped clear his head. Back and forth across the neat suburban lawn, the grass falling in even rows. Simple work. Predictable. Looking good, son, Mr. Peterson said, bringing out a glass of water. You've got a real attention to detail. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. Thank you, sir. How's your mother? Still pulling those long shifts? Yes, sir. But she likes her work. Good woman. Your mom. You're a lot like her. Responsible. The praise felt warm but heavy. Marcus finished the lawn as the sun started its downward slide. On his way to the store, he passed the Wilsons' house. The elderly couple sat on their porch, as they did most afternoons. Mrs. Wilson waved, and Marcus waved back. He'd seen them around for years but never really talked to them. The convenience store's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Marcus picked out dinner supplies. Simple stuff: bread, lunch meat, fruit. The cashier knew him by name. "No mom today?" she asked, scanning his items' surgery schedule. Marcus explained. "You're a good kid, helping out like this." Back home, Marcus booted up his laptop. The search history showed his recent obsession: how to defend against dog attacks, dog body language, what to do if a dog charges. The videos showed proper stances, warning signs, defense techniques. Marcus watched them over and over, trying to burn the information into his brain. Stand sideways. Make yourself big. Don't run. Never run. His phone rang at 8:30 p.m. Mom sounded tired. "Surgery went long," she said. "But we saved him. How was your day?" "Good. Got an A on my math test. Mowed Mr. Peterson's lawn." "That's my boy." "You eat dinner?" "Yes. Made sandwiches. I worry about you eating right." "I'm okay." "Mom." "Really?" A pause. Hospital sounds filled the silence. "I know you are," she said finally. "But you shouldn't have to be. Not like this. I should be there more." "You're doing important work," Marcus said, the words familiar and practiced. "I understand. You understand too much sometimes." She sighed. "I love you, baby." "Love you too, Mom." After hanging up, Marcus sat at his desk, staring at the laptop screen. Another dog attack video played silently. The comment section filled with advice, stories, warnings. The window stood open, letting in the cool night air. Somewhere out there, a dog roamed Maple Street, probably hungry, definitely dangerous. Marcus thought about Jimmy's scars, about Thunder's teeth, about all the things that could go wrong in a single moment. He closed the laptop. Tomorrow would be another day of routines and responsibilities. Another day of being the responsible one, the mature one, the one who understood. Another day of walking past Mr. Thompson's fence, heart in his throat, pretending not to be afraid. Thursday afternoon hit different. Maybe it was the overcast sky, or the way the wind picked up, rustling leaves across empty sidewalks. Marcus walked home from school, backpack heavy with weekend homework. His phone showed 3:45 p.m. Earlier than usual, no lawn work today. His footsteps echoed against concrete, the street strangely quiet. Even thunder stayed silent behind Mr. Thompson's fence. The first scream cut through the air like a knife. Marcus froze. His heart slammed against his ribs as a second scream followed, closer. Female. Terrified. "Help! Someone!" The voice came from around the corner. Marcus's legs moved before his brain caught up, carrying him toward the sound. He heard growling. Deep, threatening growls that made his blood run cold. He turned the corner and the world slowed down. The Wilsons stood backed against Mrs. Peterson's hedge. Mrs. Wilson gripped her husband's arm, both of them pale with fear. Between them and safety stood a massive dog, brown and black, muscles rippling under matted fur. The beast from Maple Street. The dog's head snapped toward Marcus. Saliva dripped from bared teeth. "Run!" Every instinct screamed at him to run. His muscles twitched, ready to bolt. But behind the dog, Mrs. Wilson's eyes met his. Wide. Desperate. "Please," she whispered. Marcus's hand shook as he reached for his phone. 911 would take minutes. The dog tensed, ready to lunge. The videos flashed through his mind. "Stand sideways. Make yourself big. Don't run. Hey!" His voice cracked, but he forced it louder. "Hey, dog!" The beast turned fully toward him. Up close, Marcus saw the collar hanging loose around its neck. Someone's pet. Once. Not anymore. "Back away slowly," he called to the Wilsons. "Don't run. Just back away." The dog growled deeper. Marcus spread his arms wide, trying to look bigger. His heart hammered so hard he thought it might explode. "That's right," he said, surprised by how steady he sounded. "Look at me. Just look at me." Mrs. Wilson tugged her husband's arm. They inched backward, one tiny step at a time. The dog's muscles bunched. Marcus remembered the videos. Signs of aggression. Signs of attack. "No!" He clapped his hands hard. The sharp sound made the dog flinch. "Bad dog. Sit." Command voice. Project Authority. But his palms were sweating, and the dog could probably smell his fear. A car door slammed somewhere. The dog's head whipped toward the sound. In that split second, Marcus saw the Wilsons reach the corner. "Run!" he shouted. "Now!" They ran. The dog lunged, not at them, but at Marcus. Time stretched like taffy. Marcus saw everything in crystal clarity. The yellow teeth, the wild eyes, the powerful legs pushing off asphalt. Videos and training evaporated. Pure instinct took over. He threw his backpack. It caught the dog in the face, buying precious seconds. Marcus stumbled backward, hit the curb, went down hard. Pain shot through his elbow. The dog shook off the backpack. Saliva sprayed. Marcus scrambled back on burning palms, shoes scraping concrete. "Help!" he screamed. "Somebody help!" Footsteps pounded on pavement. A man's voice shouted. The dog's head turned again, distracted by new threats. Marcus didn't wait. He rolled, pushed himself up, ran. His lungs burned. Blood roared in his ears. Behind him, he heard more shouts. A sharp whistle. The click of what might have been a taser. He didn't stop running until he hit his front door. His hand shook so bad he dropped his keys twice before getting inside. The house felt too quiet after the chaos. Marcus slid down against the door, gulping air. His elbow throbbed. His palm stung, scraped raw on concrete. Gradually, other sounds filtered in. Sirens, car doors, voices outside. His phone buzzed. "Mom, baby." Her voice tight with worry. "Mrs. Wilson just called the hospital. Are you okay?" Marcus's voice broke. "I'm home. Are you hurt? Do you need me to come home?" "Yes," he wanted to say. "Yes, please come home." But he heard the hospital noise in the background. People who needed her more. "I'm okay," he managed. "Just scraped up a little. The police are coming to take your statement." Mrs. Wilson said. "She said you saved their lives." Marcus looked at his trembling hands. I couldn't let it hurt them. My brave, stupid, wonderful boy." Mom's voice caught. "I'm so proud of you. And so scared." "I know. I'm sorry." "Don't you dare be sorry. Just stay inside until the police come, okay? I'll try to get home early." After hanging up, Marcus stayed on the floor, listening to his heartbeat slow. Outside, more sirens, more voices. The afternoon light slanted through windows, painting shadows on the wall. His elbow ached. His hand stung. But he was alive. The Wilsons were alive. Someone knocked on the door. "Police department. Marcus Johnson." Marcus stood on shaky legs. Through the window, he saw the animal control van. 2 officers in uniform. No sign of the dog. He opened the door, stepping into the aftermath of his moment of truth. The moment when fear met courage, and courage won. But his hands wouldn't stop shaking. Marcus's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications poured in from neighborhood Facebook groups, local news sites, even his school's social media page. Everyone wanted to talk about the heroic young man who saved the elderly couple from a vicious dog. "Look at this," he muttered, scrolling through his feed. Someone had posted a blurry photo taken from a distance, him standing between the dog and the Wilsons. The comments section exploded with praise. His mom paced the kitchen, still in her scrubs from rushing home early. "We should turn off your social media for a while." "Already did. These are just web alerts." The doorbell rang. Again. Mom's jaw tightened as she looked through the peephole. "Another reporter," she said. "That's the 3rd one today." Marcus slumped lower in his chair. "Maybe we should put up a no press sign. Maybe we should move to Alaska." Mom's attempt at humor fell flat. She looked exhausted. "Baby, we need to talk about what happened." "Mom, I'm fine. The scrapes are already healing." "That's not what I mean." She sat across from him, her dark eyes serious. "You could have been killed. The Wilsons could have been killed if I didn't help. That's not your responsibility. You're 13, so I should have just watched." Before she could answer, Marcus's phone buzzed again. A text from his history teacher. "Proud of you, Johnson. Take an extra day on that essay if you need it." Mom rubbed her temples. I can't lose you." "Not like," she stopped, but Marcus knew. "Not like Dad." The words hung unspoken between them. A car engine growled outside, deeper than normal traffic. Marcus went to the window. A black SUV with tinted windows cruised past their house, moving slower than it should. "Mom!" She joined him at the window, watching the vehicle disappear around the corner. Probably just another reporter. But her voice held doubt. The afternoon dragged. Marcus tried doing homework, but the words blurred together. Every car that passed made him look up. Every notification made him jump. His phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Hi. Is this Marcus Johnson? A woman's professional voice. This is Sarah Chen from Channel 7 News. We'd love to schedule an interview. Marcus hung up. Block the number. You should eat something, Mom said from the doorway. You've barely touched lunch. Not hungry. She started to respond, but headlights swept across the living room walls. The black SUV passed again, even slower this time. That's it. Mom grabbed her phone. I'm calling Officer Martinez. Marcus watched the SUV turn the corner. Something about it felt wrong. Different from the news vans and curious neighbors. More purposeful. His phone lit up with a text from Mrs. Wilson. Dear Marcus, we can never thank you enough. Robert and I would love to have you and your mother over for dinner when things settle down. He started typing a reply, but movement outside caught his eye. The SUV was back, parking across the street. Mom! Officer Martinez is sending a patrol car, she said, hanging up. Just to be safe. The SUV's engine idled. Dark windows revealed nothing about its occupants. Marcus's hands started shaking again. Not from the dog this time. From the waiting. The watching. Get away from the window, Mom said sharply. He backed up, but couldn't stop staring. The SUV sat there for 10 long minutes before driving away. Night fell. Mom called the hospital, took an emergency personal day. Ordered pizza because neither of them felt like cooking. Your phone's blowing up, she noted. Marcus checked the screen. Messages from classmates, neighbors, even Jimmy. His first text since moving away after the dog attack. Everyone wants to know what happened. You don't owe them anything. Mom's voice held an edge. This isn't some feel-good story for the evening news. This is your life. Marcus nodded, but something nagged at him. Mom, why do you think that SUV keeps coming back? Could be anything. Reporters. Private investigators. Sometimes insurance companies get involved in dog attack cases. But the dog didn't actually bite me. Doesn't matter. There's liability involved. She squeezed his shoulder. Try not to worry about it. But at dinner, she kept glancing out the window. And when Officer Martinez called to say the patrol car would do extra rounds tonight, she thanked him too quickly, too eagerly. Marcus lay in bed that night, listening to every passing car. His phone sat silent. He'd finally turned it off completely. The house creaked and settled around him. Mom's footsteps passed his door for the third time. Checking on him. Checking the windows. Checking their world that suddenly felt less safe. A car engine rumbled outside. Marcus's heart rate spiked until he recognized the sound of their neighbor's truck. His scraped palms stung against the sheets. Small price to pay, he told himself. The Wilsons were safe. The dog was caught. End of story. Except it didn't feel like the end. It felt like the beginning of something else. Something marked by dark windows and slow-moving vehicles. Something that turned his simple, ordered life into a puzzle he couldn't solve. Sleep came in fits and starts. Every time he dozed off, he dreamed of teeth and terror and tinted windows. Of running without moving. Of watching without being able to help. The SUV appeared again during breakfast. Just a glimpse this time, turning onto their street before disappearing. Mom called Officer Martinez again. Marcus watched her face as she listened, saw the worry lines deepen around her eyes. They're running the plate, she told him after hanging up. But it's probably nothing. Just people being nosy about the local hero. I'm not a hero, Marcus said. I was scared the whole time. Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. She hugged him tight. But next time, please just call 911. Marcus hugged her back, not making promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Through the window, he watched for dark vehicles and wondered what tomorrow would bring. His phone lay silent on the kitchen counter, but he could imagine the notifications piling up. Messages and comments and questions from people who thought they knew his story. They didn't know anything. Marcus slid into his seat at school, pulling his hoodie lower over his face. It didn't help. Whispers followed him like shadows. That's him. The one who fought the dog. Did you see the video? Someone had posted shaky cell phone footage from a distance. Blurry shapes and screaming. Marcus couldn't watch it. Mr. Johnson. Principal Torres stopped at his desk. If you need to take a break from classes, I'm fine. The words came automatically. Really? but his hands shook as he opened his textbook. Lunch meant more stares, more whispers. Marcus grabbed his food and headed for the library. Empty tables. Quiet. Safe. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him look. Marcus? It's Mrs. Wilson. Hope it's okay that I got your number from your mother. He typed back. It's fine. Are you and Mr. Wilson okay? We're well. Thanks to you. Could we talk? After school? Marcus stared at the message. The librarian cleared her throat. No phones allowed. Okay. He typed quickly. What time? 4 p.m.? Our house. I'll be there. The rest of the day crawled. Marcus caught glimpses of the black SUV between classes, through classroom windows. Always at a distance. Always watching. When the final bell rang, he took the long way home. Past Mr. Thompson's house, thunder was inside today. Past the spot where it happened. The sidewalk showed no signs of yesterday's chaos. His phone rang. Mom, Mrs. Wilson called me, she said. You sure about this? Yeah, I need to know they're really okay. A pause. Hospital sounds in the background. Okay, but come straight home after. The Wilsons' house looked exactly the same. White trim. Neat garden. Mrs. Wilson waited on the porch steps. Thank you for coming. She patted the step beside her. Sit. Marcus sat, keeping space between them. His palms still stung when he put weight on them. How's your husband? Shaken, but okay. She smiled slightly. He's napping. Does that a lot these days. Silence stretched. A car passed, not the SUV. Just regular traffic. I've been thinking, Mrs. Wilson said finally. About what you did. Why you did it? Marcus stared at his scraped hands. Anyone would have, no. Her voice turned sharp. Most people would have run. Called 911 maybe. But you faced it. Even though you were terrified. He looked up. How did you? I saw your face. Her eyes were kind. I saw what it cost you. More silence. Wind rustled through autumn leaves. There was a boy, Marcus said suddenly. My friend Jimmy. 5 years ago. The story spilled out. The attack. The blood. The helplessness. Mrs. Wilson listened without interrupting. And yesterday, he finished, when I heard you scream. I couldn't be helpless again. I couldn't. She touched his shoulder gently. Courage isn't about not being afraid. That's what Mom says. Smart woman. Your mother. Mrs. Wilson straightened. Now, about that SUV that's been following you. Marcus tensed. You've seen it. Hard to miss. Robert used to work security. You know. He doesn't like it. Mom called the police. Good. But be careful anyway. Movement caught Marcus's eye. The SUV rolled past. Windows reflecting afternoon sun. Mrs. Wilson's hand tightened on his shoulder. Inside. Now. They watched through the window as the vehicle parked. No one got out. I should go, Marcus said. Mom's waiting. I'll walk you home. You don't have to. Humor an old lady. The SUV followed them at a distance. Mrs. Wilson kept up cheerful conversation about her garden, her voice steady. But her eyes tracked the vehicle like a hawk. Mom's car sat in their driveway, home early again. The SUV accelerated suddenly, disappearing around the corner. Thank you, Marcus said. Mrs. Wilson squeezed his hand. Thank you. For everything. Inside. Mom paced the kitchen. You're late. Sorry. We were talking. And then the SUV. It followed you. Her face paled. That's it. I'm calling a neighborhood watch meeting. Mom, no arguments. She grabbed her phone. This has gone far enough. The meeting happened that night. Neighbors packed their living room. Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Chen. The Petersons. The Wilsons. Officer Martinez stood by the door, taking notes. This vehicle has been reported multiple times, he said. We're investigating, but without cause for arrest. Cause? Mom's voice rose. They're stalking my son. Could be reporters, someone suggested. For 2 days. Mr. Wilson spoke up. No, this is something else. Arguments broke out. Theories flew. Marcus sat on the stairs, watching adults argue about his safety. His phone buzzed. Text from Jimmy. Saw the video. You okay? Before he could answer, headlights swept the living room. The room went quiet. Officer Martinez moved first, hand on his weapon. But the SUV kept going, engine fading into distance. I'm posting extra patrols, Martinez said finally. And I'll fast-track the plate trace. People left in groups, looking over their shoulders. The Wilsons hugged Marcus goodbye. Remember what I said, Mrs. Wilson whispered. About courage. Later, lying in bed, Marcus thought about courage. About fear. About dark vehicles and watching eyes. Tomorrow was Saturday. The SUV would be back. He knew it like he knew his own heartbeat. I won't run, he whispered to the dark. Not this time. But sleep was a long time coming. Marcus pushed his cereal around the bowl, watching milk turn soggy flakes into mush. The kitchen clock read 8:47 a.m. Morning sun streamed through windows, painting bright squares on the linoleum floor. Every few minutes, his eyes darted to the street. Waiting. Mom dozed on the couch, still in her scrubs from the night shift. She'd refused to sleep upstairs, wanting to be closer to the door. To him, a car engine rumbled in the distance. Marcus's spoon clattered against the bowl. Just the mailman, Mom mumbled, not opening her eyes. Marcus dumped his uneaten cereal in the sink. His stomach felt too tight for food. The scrapes on his palms had scabbed over, itching as they healed. 9:15 a.m. Still nothing. He tried doing homework, reading, even cleaning his room. Anything to keep his hands busy, his mind occupied. 9:43 a.m. A dog barked somewhere down the street. Not thunder, different pitch. Mom stirred. What time is it? Almost 10. She sat up, rubbing her neck. You should eat something real. Not hungry. Marcus, engine noise. Deep. Familiar. They both froze. Through the front window, the black SUV appeared, moving slower than a funeral procession. This time, it didn't pass by. It stopped, directly in front of their house. Mom was on her feet instantly, phone in hand. I'm calling Martinez. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. Wait. The SUV's engine idled. Dark windows revealed nothing. Maybe. His mouth felt dry. Maybe we should just see what they want. Absolutely not. Mom jabbed at her phone. Martinez? It's back. Right in front, a car door opened. Marcus moved to the window. A man stepped out, tall, black suit, briefcase. Professional. Not what he expected. A second man emerged from the passenger side. Similarly dressed. They don't look like reporters, Marcus said. They don't look like anyone we want to talk to. Mom's voice turned sharp. Martinez is sending a car. 5 minutes. The men stood by their vehicle, talking quietly. One checked his watch. They're just waiting, Marcus observed. Good. Let them wait for the police. But something felt different today. The fear was still there, but under it, curiosity. 2 days of watching and being watched. Time for answers. The doorbell rang. Mom grabbed his arm. Don't. Mom. 5 minutes. Just wait 5 minutes. The bell rang again. Then knocking. Firm, but not aggressive. Marcus Johnson. A deep voice, calm and professional. Mrs. Johnson? Would like to speak with you. Marcus looked at his mom. Really looked at her. The exhaustion, the worry, the fear. Just like his own, but different. Parent fear. I have to know, he said softly. Her grip tightened, then released. Together, they moved to the door. Mom positioned herself slightly in front, protective. The bell rang once more. Marcus took a deep breath. Reached for the handle. Wait. Mom's hand covered his. Whatever this is, whatever they want, you don't have to do anything. Understand? He nodded. The door opened. Sunlight glinted off the taller man's silver hair. Up close, his suit looked expensive. His smile seemed genuine. Marcus Johnson. He extended his hand. I'm Richard Blackwood, director of the Thompson Foundation for Youth Excellence. Marcus stared at the offered hand. And you must be Mrs. Johnson. Blackwood turned to Mom. I apologize for our unconventional approach. We had to be certain. Certain of what? Mom's voice could have frozen water. That your son is exactly who we thought he was. The second man stepped forward, opening his briefcase. May we come in? We have an opportunity to discuss. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Actually, Mom said, why don't we wait for Officer Martinez? He's very interested in meeting you. Blackwood's smile didn't waver. Of course. We expected law enforcement involvement, given our methods. He produced a business card. Feel free to verify our credentials. Mom took the card like it might bite. The sirens grew closer. Marcus's hands had stopped shaking, he realized. The men radiating neither threat nor menace, just calm professionalism and respect. The Wilsons, he said suddenly. Both men looked at him. You know them? Robert and Margaret Wilson are longtime supporters of our foundation. Blackwood nodded. They contacted us immediately after the incident. Foundation for what? Mom demanded. Youth excellence. We identify young people who demonstrate exceptional character under pressure. People like your son. 2 police cruisers rounded the corner, lights flashing. Ah! Blackwood straightened his tie. Right on schedule. Shall we explain everything to everyone at once? Officer Martinez approached, hand on his weapon. Sir, I'm going to need to see some identification. Of course. Blackwood remained perfectly calm, though I believe Mrs. Wilson is already on her way to vouch for us. As if on cue, the Wilsons' car appeared. Marcus watched it all unfold, police checking IDs, Mrs. Wilson hugging his mom, Mr. Wilson shaking Blackwood's hand like an old friend. The pieces started falling into place. You could have just called, he said to Blackwood. The man smiled again. We needed to see how you handled pressure. Fear, uncertainty, a pause. You did remarkably well. Mom overheard. You terrorized my son to test him. To verify his character, Blackwood corrected. The dog incident showed his courage. We needed to see his judgment. Martinez finished his checks. They are legitimate, Mrs. Johnson. Foundation's been around 20 years. The tension slowly bled out of Mom's shoulders. But her voice stayed sharp. And what exactly does your foundation want with my son? Blackwood opened his briefcase. We'd like to discuss that inside, if you're willing. It involves a rather significant educational opportunity. Marcus met his mother's eyes. She nodded slightly. Come in, he said. But no more tests. No more tests, Blackwood agreed. You've more than proven yourself. They filed inside. Police, neighbors, mysterious men in suits. The SUV sat empty at the curb, no longer menacing. Just a car. Marcus closed the door behind them, leaving fear on the doorstep. Time for answers. The living room felt crowded. Mr. Blackwood and his associate, Mr. Chen, took the couch. Mom sat in her favorite armchair, still looking ready to pounce. Officer Martinez stood by the door, radio quiet on his belt. The Wilsons perched on dining room chairs Marcus had dragged in. First, Blackwood began, I want to formally apologize for our surveillance methods. The Foundation takes selection very seriously. Selection for what? Mom's fingers drummed against her armrest. Blackwood opened his briefcase. The Wilson Preparatory Academy has an opening for their spring semester. Full scholarship? Marcus's breath caught. Wilson Prep, the private school across town. The one with the advanced programs, the one they could never afford. Robert and I are on the board, Mrs. Wilson said softly. When we saw what Marcus did, saving 2 lives at great personal risk, Blackwood pulled out papers. That alone caught our attention. But your academic record, your maturity, your family responsibilities, exceptional. Mom's drumming stopped. You've been investigating my son. Background checks are standard procedure. Mr. Chen spoke for the first time. We had to be thorough. The surveillance? Officer Martinez asked, testing his response to pressure. Blackwood smiled. Most candidates either panic or try to confront us directly. Marcus showed remarkable restraint. You scared him, Mom snapped. Yes. And he handled that fear intelligently. Called the police. Gathered community support. Stayed aware but not aggressive. Marcus found his voice. Why not just talk to us? Character reveals itself under pressure. Blackwood spread papers on the coffee table. We needed to see the real Marcus Johnson. The room fell quiet. Outside, birds chirped. Normal Saturday sounds. The scholarship covers everything, Blackwood continued. Tuition, books, uniforms, transportation. Mom leaned forward. What's the catch? Maintain a 3.5 GPA. Participate in community service. Represent the Foundation's values, which are excellence, courage, service to others. Blackwood's eyes met Marcus's. Everything your son already demonstrates. Marcus picked up the nearest paper. Wilson Prep's crest gleamed at the top. Words jumped out, prestigious, accelerated learning, college preparation. Why me? He asked. Mrs. Wilson touched his arm. Because you didn't think twice about helping us. Because you're exactly the kind of student the Foundation wants to support. Mom took the paper from Marcus's hands, scanning it carefully. This is a lot to process. Of course. Blackwood stood. Take the weekend to decide. We'll need an answer by Monday. Officer Martinez checked his phone. Foundation checks out clean. 20 years of scholarship programs. I've known Richard for years, Mr. Wilson added. The Foundation does good work. Papers shuffled. Hands shook. People moved toward the door. One more thing. Blackwood paused. The surveillance photos. Would you like to see them? Marcus nodded before Mom could object. The photos showed ordinary moments. Him walking to school. Doing homework through windows. Mowing Mr. Peterson's lawn. Nothing invasive. Just daily life. You look so serious in all of them, Mrs. Wilson observed. Marcus stared at his captured self. She was right. Even alone, he carried himself like someone much older. The visitors left in waves. First Martinez, then the Wilsons. Finally Blackwood and Chen, leaving stacks of papers and possibilities behind. Mom closed the door. Turned to Marcus. You don't have to. I want to. The word surprised him. I mean, if you think it's okay. She smiled. Her first real smile in days. Baby, do you know how long I've wished we could send you to a school like that? But your job, the schedule, they are offering transportation. She picked up the papers. And you deserve this. You deserve every opportunity. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Wilson. No pressure. But would love to have you at Wilson Prep. Mom read over his shoulder. They really care about you. I was just trying to help. You did more than that. She hugged him tight. You showed everyone who you really are. The afternoon drifted. They ordered pizza, celebration food. Mom called the hospital, arranged schedule changes. Marcus read every document, every detail. 3 AP classes, he noted. Advanced everything. You can handle it. Yeah. He looked up. You really think so? Marcus. Mom sat beside him. You've been handling adult responsibilities since you were 10. School will be the easy part. Evening settled in. The papers migrated to the kitchen table. Mom made calls, family, friends, sharing the news. Marcus stepped outside. The street looked different somehow. No SUV shadows. No lurking fears. His phone buzzed again. Jimmy, heard about the scholarship. Proud of you, man. The night air felt cool on his face. Somewhere down the street, thunder barked. Just a dog now, not a demon. Back inside, Mom had spread the papers into organized piles. I think, she said slowly, this might be the start of something amazing. Marcus picked up the Wilson Prep brochure. His future, printed in glossy photos and promising words. All because he couldn't walk away when someone needed help. Yeah, he said. I think it is. The animal shelter smelled like wet dog and disinfectant. Marcus stood in the doorway, hands jammed in his pockets, heart racing. You don't have to do this, Mom said beside him. Yes, I do. A week had passed since Blackwood's visit. The scholarship papers sat signed on his desk at home. But this was harder. Marcus. Dr. Sarah, the shelter veterinarian, approached with a clipboard. Mrs. Wilson said you might stop by. He nodded, throat tight. She said you work with people who are afraid of dogs. Fear response therapy. Dr. Sarah smiled. Want to meet Luna? She led them to a quiet room away from the kennels. A golden retriever lay on a mat, tail thumping gently. She's our therapy dog, Dr. Sarah explained. Trained to help people overcome fear. Marcus pressed against the wall. The dog stayed put, watching with soft brown eyes. She won't move without permission. Dr. Sarah sat on the floor. Take your time. Minutes ticked by. Luna's tail kept wagging, patient. Marcus watched her breathing, the rise and fall of her sides. Can I? He swallowed hard. Can I sit down? Of course. He slid down the wall, keeping distance between himself and Luna. Mom squeezed his shoulder before sitting too. She's beautiful, Mom said. Rescued her 2 years ago. Dr. Sarah scratched Luna's ears. She was scared of everything. Now she helps others overcome their fears. Marcus studied the dog. No bad teeth. No growling. Just calm acceptance. Would you like to hear about our therapy program? He nodded, not trusting his voice. Dr. Sarah explained the process. gradual exposure, controlled environments, building trust. Luna demonstrated commands, always gentle, always predictable. Can I? Marcus's voice cracked. Can I touch her? When you're ready. No rush. Another 10 minutes passed. Luna dozed. Marcus inched closer. His phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Wilson. Lunch at 1? Robert's making his famous meatloaf. Reality check. Normal life. Moving forward. Okay, he said. I'm ready. Dr. Sarah guided his hand to Luna's head. Soft fur. Warm skin. His fingers trembled. Luna's tail thumped once, gentle. Good job, Dr. Sarah said quietly. Both of you? They left an hour later with program paperwork and an appointment for next week. Marcus's hands had stopped shaking. The Wilsons' house looked different in daylight. Friendly. Mrs. Wilson waited on the porch. How was the shelter? Scary, Marcus admitted. But good. Inside, Mr. Wilson worked in the kitchen. The house smelled like home-cooked food and coffee. Perfect timing, he called. Just came out of the oven. They sat around the dining room table, real plates, cloth napkins. Different from Marcus's usual sandwich-at-the-counter lunch. The school called, Mrs. Wilson said between bites. Your uniform fitting is Tuesday. Marcus nodded, mouth full of meatloaf. Mom had taken a rare day shift to accompany him. Nervous? Mr. Wilson asked. A little. Marcus pushed peas around his plate. It's all happening fast. Change usually does. Mrs. Wilson poured more water. But you're ready. After lunch, they showed him Mr. Wilson's study. Photos covered the walls. Their children, grandchildren, decades of life. Robert worked security for 30 years, Mrs. Wilson explained. He knows everyone at the foundation. Is that how you met Mr. Blackwood? Other way around. Mr. Wilson smiled. He found us. Like he found you. The afternoon passed in stories. The Wilsons' lives unfolded in photographs and memories. Marcus listened, asking questions, learning their history. His phone buzzed. Text from the prep school, schedule confirmation, orientation details. I should go, he said finally. Got homework. Mrs. Wilson hugged him. We're so proud of you. For everything. Walking home, Marcus passed Mr. Thompson's house. Thunder barked, different pitch than the attacking dog, he realized. Not all barks meant danger. Mom texted, how was lunch? Good. They're nice. Like grandparents. Marcus smiled. Yeah, kind of. At home, he spread his homework across the kitchen table. Normal routine, but everything felt different. Lighter. His phone buzzed again. Email from Wilson Prep, student handbook, campus map. The shelter paperwork lay beside his textbooks. Small steps. Big changes. A car slowed outside. Just the neighbors, not a mysterious SUV. Amazing how fast fear could fade when replaced by possibility. Evening settled in. Mom came home with Chinese takeout and questions about his day. The therapy dog, he said between bites of low mine. She was so gentle. Proud of you for trying. Had to start somewhere. Later, in his room, Marcus pulled up the Wilson Prep website. His future in pixels and promises. The video from the dog attack had faded from social media. Old news now. But the changes it sparked, those were just beginning. His phone lit up. Text from Dr. Sarah. Luna missed you after you left. See you next week. Marcus smiled. Another step forward. Life moved fast sometimes. Fear turned to courage. Strangers turned to family. Endings turned to beginnings. And a boy who couldn't walk past a barking dog found himself walking toward a future he never imagined. All because he chose not to run. Marcus adjusted his tie for the 10th time, staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. The Wilson Prep uniform still felt stiff, navy blazer, gray slacks, striped tie. Stop fidgeting, Mom said from the doorway. You look handsome. It's too much. He tugged at his collar. The ceremony, the speech, everything. It's exactly enough. She straightened his tie. The foundation wants to celebrate you. The award ceremony would start in 2 hours. His phone already buzzed with good luck messages. Marcus. A familiar voice called from downstairs. You ready? Jimmy. Here. In person. Marcus took the stairs 2 at a time. His old friend stood in the living room, grinning. Scars visible on his right arm, but faded now. Man, look at you. Jimmy laughed. All fancy. They hugged, awkward teenage boys trying to be cool about it. Can't believe you came. Wouldn't miss it. Jimmy stepped back. My therapist says it's good closure. Marcus understood. Jimmy's scars. His fears. Full circle. Boys. Mom called. We need to go. The Foundation's building dominated downtown, glass and steel reaching skyward. People filled the lobby. Important people in expensive suits. The Wilsons waited by the elevator. There's our boy. Mrs. Wilson hugged him. Ready for your speech? Marcus patted his pocket where the note card sat. 3 minutes about courage and growth. No pressure. They rode up together. Jimmy whispered jokes about the elevator music. Mom kept smoothing invisible wrinkles from her dress. The event space sprawled across the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city below. Rows of chairs faced a podium. Marcus. Mr. Blackwood approached. The man of the hour. More handshakes. More introductions. People whose names blurred together. 5 minutes, someone announced. Marcus slipped away to the bathroom. Splashed water on his face. Breathed deep. His phone buzzed. Text from Dr. Sarah. Luna says good luck. 6 weeks of therapy sessions. Small victories. Baby steps toward healing. The note cards felt heavy in his pocket. Words about fear and courage and choices. Marcus. Mom knocked softly. They are ready. The room had filled while he was gone. Faces turned toward him. Family, friends, strangers. All waiting. Mr. Blackwood stood at the podium. Today, we celebrate extraordinary courage, he began. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Marcus sat between Mom and Jimmy. The Wilsons beamed from the front row. When Marcus Johnson saw 2 lives in danger, Blackwood continued, he didn't hesitate. Despite his own trauma, despite his own fears, he chose to help. The story unfolded through Blackwood's words. The dog, the rescue, the aftermath. But courage takes many forms, he said. The courage to face fear, to grow, to change. Marcus's hands steadied. The note cards felt lighter. And now, I'd like to invite Marcus to share his story. Applause. Mom squeezed his hand. Jimmy whispered, you got this. Marcus walked to the podium. Faces watched, waiting. 5 years ago, he began, I watched my best friend get attacked by a dog. The room hushed. Jimmy nodded encouragement. I was helpless then. Scared. That fear stayed with me, grew with me. Until last month, when I heard Mrs. Wilson scream. Words flowed easier now. The rescue. The foundation. The changes. Someone told me recently that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and choosing to act anyway. Mrs. Wilson wiped her eyes. Mom smiled through tears. The foundation's giving me amazing opportunities. School. Therapy. A future I never imagined. But the real gift? Learning that fear doesn't define us. Our choices do. More applause. Handshakes. Photos. Mom's speech came next, about single motherhood, about watching her son grow up too fast. Marcus taught me something, she said. Strength isn't about carrying burdens alone. It's about learning to let others help carry them. The ceremony blurred. Award presentation. Scholarship details. Future plans. Finally, quiet. Just family and close friends remained. Jimmy approached the Wilsons. Showed his scars. Shared his story. You raise a good one, he told Mom. Marcus stood by the windows, watching sunset paint the city gold. Mr. Blackwood joined him. First day of school Monday, the older man said. Yes, sir. Nervous? Marcus smiled. A little. But that's okay. Later, at home, he hung the blazer carefully. The award certificate found a place on his wall. His phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Wilson. Dinner tomorrow? Robert's grilling. Another from Jimmy. Proud of you, bro. One from Dr. Sarah. Ready for next week's session? Luna's excited. Mom knocked on his door. Good day. Yeah. Marcus smiled. Really good. She sat on his bed. I've been thinking, maybe we could get a dog someday. When you're ready. Maybe. He touched the certificate. Small steps. Right. Right. She hugged him. I love you, baby. Love you too, Mom. After she left, Marcus stood at his window. The night felt different now. Lighter. Fuller of possibility. Fear still lived in his heart. Probably always would. but it didn't control him anymore. He'd faced it, fought it, learned from it, and somehow, along the way, he'd found more than courage. He'd found family in the Wilsons, found healing with Jimmy, found strength he never knew he had, all because of one moment, one choice, one act of courage. Marcus smiled at his reflection in the dark glass. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears, new choices. But he was ready. After all, courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about being afraid and moving forward anyway, one step at a time.